Hey, it's Alex Radical from BoardGameCo, and welcome to another week in review. And this is basically the video where I tell you about all the things that happened last week, as well as what's coming up. And speaking of what's coming up, make sure, if you're not watching the whole video through to the end, well, first of all, shame on you. Shame. Secondly, make sure to skip to the timestamps down below for what's coming up next week, because there's two interesting live things happening Sunday, or one interesting, one less interesting. So timestamps down below if you want to find out more about what's coming up for next week. Past that, as far as last week Saturday, we had a few things. We had a Tainted Grail unboxing. That was because I finally got all my stuff in Wave 1 shipping, or not Wave 1, One Wave shipping. In One Wave shipping, I got all my stuff for Tainted Grail, and I need to get that to the table now, along with a host of other games that I really need to get to the table. I'm overdue for a good purge. I'm thinking about this now. I'm really overdue for a good purge. We'll figure something out there. But in any case, and it's a different kind of purge. It's an accessibility-based purge. There are just some games that I'm not going to play, and I really need to understand that. Even though I like them, I'm just not getting to the table. But that is a side topic for another day. Going back to this video, so we had a Tainted Grail unboxing, then from there we had a review of Mondrian Blocks with Ricky. Mondrian Blocks is a little puzzle-like experience, and it's basically, it's a puzzle-like experience. It's a solo puzzly game. We have to try to fit things together in a grid and make sure that they all fit together in said grid. From there, I had a review for Spirit Island, which is a game that's been in my collection for a while now. I really need to play it with the expansions because I adore the game, and everyone says the expansions make it better. I've heard comments from people saying you have to play Branch and Claw, it makes the game so much better. I've heard comments from people saying you have to play Jagged Earth, it makes the game so much better. And so if we have multiple comments about the expansions, about how better it makes the game, maybe I should play the expansions for a game that I already love and they supposedly make the game better. So I'll do that at some point, eventually. Sunday we had a Castle of Mad King von Ludwig, not Von, I did it again. Castle of Mad King Ludwig, Should You Back It, where basically in that video I talked about, for some weird reason, I insist on adding the Von, Castle of Mad King von Ludwig. I don't know why, I just insist on doing it, it's reflex, whatever. But should you back it on that? The short version is, I believe it'll hold its value. I did not cover the fact. It's not that I missed, it's that I need to make a mental note about how to best cover and condense stuff about international things in the order. Because the problem is, something I've talked about before, is I can't fully cover the international side of things when I'm talking about backing from a financial stance of whether it makes sense to back it. Because I'd have to know not just the shipping rates, not just the VAT, but I'd have to know the international market for used games, which is very different place to place. There are places I've seen people say from different countries where there is no international market, there is no used game market in that place, and so you can't resell it, which changes the whole conversation. So it's not that I am not cognizant of international, it's that I will never be able to give a full picture for international backers without, first of all, doing intense amounts of research and then breaking it down by each and every region, which would make for a very unwatchable video, practically speaking. That being said, I have to do better of striking the balance of trying to give as much information as I possibly can without overclogging the video, and that will mean mentioning international shipping rates when they are above average. That will mean covering VAT when it's a factor. It means just being aware of and mentioning these things as much as possible. It is a habit that I need to build up, and so comment when I don't. I will mentally add it to my catalog of things that I try to cover. It's always part of the process of getting better at, well, what I try to do on the channel. Monday was to back or not to back, and that was where I talked about games coming up, including, or games not coming up, games on Kickstarter, and what all that stuff was, and including, by the way, Carnegie, which may or may not be a review coming later today, so we'll talk about Carnegie shortly. But yeah, I talked about that. Also, well, there's a few things that I'll be covering on Monday, but short version, I'll cover it now, and I guess I'll cover it Monday too for different people who watch different videos. But the short version is I've had the opportunity to play both the Rune Lords as well as Pingyao Chinese Banks. I've had the opportunity to play both of those games. Now, I will say I am not backing the Rune Lords. I'm probably backing Pingyao. I haven't decided for sure. I will not be doing a full review of them. I will go more into it in my coming up Monday, Monday to back or not to back roundup video. I'll go more into them. The short version of both, I'm going to try to make it condensed. The short version of both is the Rune Lords, I think, is a very solid game. I also believe you probably have to play it a decent amount to fully benefit from the experience. It's fairly in depth. There's a lot to pick up, lot to go on there, and I just don't think I will play it that much. For me, the skirmish games I like are games that you can jump straight in, and they have less depth, but they are more playable out the box. Games like Super Fantasy Brawl, like Rum and Bones, like the upcoming Bloodstone from Skyblade Entertainment, from James Hudson, and I can never remember the names. There's so many different things. Druid City Games, that's the other one. So I like more accessibility. The Rune Lords, I really do believe it's a solid game. I'll cover it more on Monday, but it's not one that I want because I think I'll have to play it like 10 times to fully grasp the depth. Ping Yao, on the other hand, Ping Yao is one that I'm still skeptical just because of the price and whether it will add enough to my collection to be worth the price, but I really enjoyed my gameplay on TTS from that game. And both of these were on TTS, by the way, which is why I'm not doing reviews, because I don't have review copies. But that's Monday. Tuesday was adding scores to my reviews, a conversation that I already regret, having had to start adding review scores for Carnegie over here. So Carnegie's a good example. I had to add a score for Carnegie, and I was like, I don't even know how to add a score for Carnegie because my score is contextual based on what's coming in the expansion or not. And I go into it more in the review, not in the expansion, in the Kickstarter. The extra stuff you get in the Kickstarter would change my score. So you'll see it more in the review, but point is, adding scores to my review is meant to be giving you more insight, and it is certainly a struggle, which many people said it would be a struggle, and we'll see if I stick with it. Hopefully I actually do, or not hopefully, I will do what makes sense for the channel, but I plan on giving it more than a single week before giving up on a new system. So we'll see how it goes. I'm still on board, just, you know, it is a fun part of the process. Wednesday was my top 10 most anticipated 2021 games. Whole bunch of games in that, and that's specifically going to be non-Kickstarter. So a whole bunch of non-Kickstarter games going to retail, or at least supposedly non-Kickstarter. Some may slip through, but a whole bunch of games in there that I plan on addressing. And this seems like a good time to talk about Daniel Tascini, which also seems like a huge mistake to talk about Daniel Tascini. Both things can be true at the same time. The short version of Daniel Tascini is one of the games I was excited about, or am excited about, is Tabanusu Cities of Ur. I think I'm getting that name correctly. And I got a comment, and then I mentioned it's by Daniel Tascini, and I was like, I'm not getting into that. And I got a comment, which was a fair comment. I don't have a problem with the comment, but I wanted to explain myself in the comment, and also my approach in general. And the comment I got was, you don't have to simply dismiss it, like, meaning, why don't you engage? Why don't you encounter or discuss the context of what's going on instead of just saying, I don't want to get into it? Because the controversy, which is a tricky subject, the controversy is about Daniel Tascini making remarks or statements or words that are racist. The specific presentation is the Italian version of the N-word, which I don't even want to say because I don't know how problematic it is or isn't. And then the debate around that was, how bad was this? Is it acceptable? Is it not acceptable? Is it completely the equivalent of the American N-word? Is it somewhere in the middle? I saw a lot of debates and a lot of conversation around it, and I am uninformed as to how problematic or not it is. My belief, I would say, based on what I did see and from whom I did see it, my belief is that it is problematic, but not as problematic as using the N-word. It is not sensitive, but perhaps not outright racist. And then I saw other comments and back and forth and this and that. And the context as to why I don't want to engage in that discussion is not because I don't want to talk about racism. I'll talk about racism from today to tomorrow. I don't really mind having a conversation about anything. You've hopefully seen that. I don't shy away from conversation, for better or for worse. Rather, my problem is that I do not believe I'm walking into that conversation well informed about what he did say, to what degree, what impact, whether he was full on racist or whether he was insensitive and not caring enough with his words. And I believe there should be different consequences to those things. I believe an outright racist individual should have a different economic impact to his life as a consequence than someone who is not sensitive enough to what they should or shouldn't have been saying. Perhaps, I mean, there's any different number of different conversations around this, but I do believe that consequences in today's day and age are swift and sudden. And I talked about this recently with the whole Awakened Realms and Elon Musk in their thing. And I talked about cancel culture there, and I did get pushback about the term cancel culture there, and I'm fine with that. My specific issue was not the decisions people were making, but rather the tone to which they tried to attack Awakened Realms for what was an oversight. That's basically my problem. I don't mind people who say, well, I'm not backing a game with someone in it, but you don't need to, and I don't mind someone saying, listen, Awakened Realms, if you put this in, I'm not backing the game. But people were genuinely attacking Awakened Realms as if they committed some horrible crime when their best problem, likely the most problem they encountered, or they did, or whatever, was oversight. And that's my problem. My problem is when people get punished for oversight or for a lack of sensitivity that could have been added to the conversation. And so the reason I'm not engaging with it is, if the specific problem we have with Daniel Tascini, and by we I mean the general society, if the specific problem that we're trying to encounter or engage with is the fact that he was not sensitive or he was not sensitive to the damage his words can cause. If that's the problem we have, which I believe would be the problem, right? If he was not sensitive to the damage, that impact that words have, then if we're going to address that, shouldn't we first start with ourselves? And yet cancel culture isn't about that. Cancel culture is often, not always, it's often a mob of uninformed people jumping onto the bandwagon of what currently seems to be whoever needs to be convicted is. I believe in having sensitivity to the impact our own words and actions can cause. And it does not mean sheltering racist behavior. That's not what it means. I understand that. It means if you care so much about the impact it has, how many people did you talk to before you screamed for his execution, for his shutting out of whatever? It's not about sheltering, but it means if you're saying we have to be so concerned with the impact our words have, did you research what he did? Who did you speak to? Or did you read 2 Facebook posts and say, hey, I know enough to convict this man and all his misdeeds? Again, this is not about sheltering anyone from the consequences of their actions. It is about the difference between understanding what the process is for being judge, jury, and executioner versus looking at 2 Facebook posts and running straight to the thing. Now, I believe, again, I'm saying this as someone who believes, based on my own limited understanding of the picture, I believe he was wrong. I'm not certain about it, though. And to that end, I don't want to jump on the mob. I want to be sensitive to the damage my words can have, even as while we attack someone else for the lack of sensitivity the damage that their words can have. You can't fix one problem with another, and I know I'll get pushback from some and support from others on this mindset. That's in the nature of tackling controversial subjects. You will get both support and pushback, and I'm okay with that. I'd rather be someone who could be accused of... I'd rather be someone who is accused of taking the wrong actions with the best of intent. Which, by the way, people who read 2 Facebook posts and then condemn Daniel Tascini are also people who are taking missteps with the best of intent, or at least in my opinion, they're missteps. I don't like the concept of the mob. If racism is so important, if we need to stomp it out, and you can't damage other people's lives, and these things are important, and you should stamp them out, but do your due diligence. Talk to a few people. Figure out what you need to do, and don't just jump on the bandwagon of attacking anyone. And that goes for both ways, by the way. That goes for the people on the reverse side, people who are saying I'm never going to buy something from Board and Dice again. Did you do the research as to what Board and Dice did or didn't do before they separated from Daniel Tascini? Or did you just assume that they just instinctively did? Because maybe they did. Maybe they instinctively said, we just can't deal, we're going to walk away. But perhaps they know more than we do. The concept I have is that aspect of jumping to action without information is something that is so antithetical to who I am, especially when the reverse side of that conversation is damage being done to others. This is not the Week in Review anymore. This is Alex Radcliffe talks about controversial stuff. Point is, it's a complicated subject. I just wish... And there is a flip side. Let's give the flip side. The flip side is that my desire to not be damaging with my words can too easily lead to the sheltering of misbehavior, and that results in no consequence. That is definitely true. And my answer there is just research. It's not about leaving people alone. It's about doing your research. If you are someone who looked into it, if you are someone who spoke to 3 Italian people, if you are someone who looked at all the information out there and then came to a conclusion, fine. If you saw a mob and jumped on it, that's not fine. That's where I am with this. So, moving on to Wednesday. Woohoo! That's not Wednesday, that was Wednesday. Moving on to Thursday. Thursday was, let's talk about VAT. Oh yay, another subject, that's fun. Okay, that was literally the video for Thursday, which was talking about VAT and how VAT affects Kickstarter campaigns, and the nature of the problems that different companies have to deal with in terms of VAT, and how they have to address those problems, and how no matter what you do, it's going to frustrate some, pacify others, and generally is just not a fun conversation to have. And so that was my conversation for Thursday. You can watch that video, because as usual, links down below to all these videos. Friday was 10-second reviews with the Broken Meeple. Luke Hector. Jeez, I don't know where I said Phil from. Luke Hector, Broken Meeple. We did a bunch of 10-second reviews. Obviously, these are 10-second-ish because we covered 30 games in an hour and a half, which really means it's about 3 minutes per game on average, which is still not bad considering how long my content usually is per game. But anyways, that was a video that I already did one on his channel. We did that last week, so that went up, I think, Monday or something, I don't know. And this was doing one on my channel, so go ahead and check out the Broken Meeple's channel or whatnot, or just head to that video, and if you like his content, check out his channel from there. but that would be the Broken Meeple, Luke Hector, and 10-second reviews. And then we had from there Saturday, which is today. Saturday is obviously this video, which has drastically gone off the rails. Did not plan on talking about any of this, which is par for the course. Then we had, coming up at 12 o'clock, I believe, 12 o'clock, we have a video for a review of Unicorn Fever that I did with Ricky. Now, I want to be clear here, by the way, Unicorn Fever is a tricky one, and I talked about this in the review, but I'm going to say it now in case you weren't going to watch the review. But Unicorn Fever is a game that is a re-implementation of Horse Fever, and the new version, Unicorn Fever, looks like it's a kid's game, just because of the artwork is so kid-focused. But it's actually a pretty fun game. I would call it most similar to Stockpile in terms of where it falls in my own game night rotation. It is a lighter game that is great for when you have an hour of time to fill and you want something that will give you decisions but also give you funny moments when things don't work out the way you want. So very reminiscent of Stockpile. I think if I had to choose one, I would probably choose Stockpile. I'm pretty sure I would. I think Stockpile just has more modules that I enjoy to mix it up. But then again, Unicorn Fever is one that I play with my family as well. So Unicorn Fever does double up on that versus Stockpile is game night only. So that would be the Unicorn Fever. Coming up at 2 o'clock, we have the review for Carnegie, which is what's on my table right now. You can play this game on Board Game Arena if you haven't already. It is a bit of a mental grok to figure out this game and how it plays. It really, I would say genuinely like 60-70% of the way through my first game was when I finally felt I had a handle on how this game plays. But that being said, jumping into game 2 was a lot of fun. Spoilers, no spoilers. Watch my review to find out more about how I feel about Carnegie. From there, and then I'll talk about my recap next week like I usually do. I usually do the recap of the review in the next week in case you don't want to watch the full review, but you'll have to wait till next week to find out the recap from there. Then, what's coming up next? So, Sunday, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, there will be a live Q&A, which I just haven't done one in roughly a month, and I try to do those roughly every single month. So live Q&A coming up for that. So that's going to be, we can talk about whatever you want. You can talk about Primal, we can talk about board games, you can talk about my horrific views on racism and sheltering racists, because apparently, I mean, that might be a thing. We'll find out if it's a thing. We can talk about whatever, anything you want. I do not shy away from conversation, for better or for worse. Then, and this is the fun part, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be joining Tom Bassel on the Dice Towers channel for a statistics and analysis of the top 100. And so some background here, and I don't know if we'll be going into the background on that actual show. If we do, then this is just repeat information. But basically, about a year ago, I think it's roughly when I started my YouTube channel for the first time. Like, I think it was, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it makes sense. It was probably early December, and I started, my first video went up December 8th, and I believe I reached out to Tom early December of last year. But basically, I'm a statistics guy. I like numbers. That may be evident based on all my content and the focus on value and everything else. But I work with statistics software at my day job, and for anything, for YouTube, for this, for that, I work with a lot of different softwares, a particular one called Power BI, and I plugged in his top 100 into a Power BI presentation last year and sent it over to him. I said, hey, here's some cool numbers. I think these things are cool. I think it's cool information. And he liked it, but it was too late to incorporate to the top 100 last year, so we're doing it this year with more charts and graphs and fun things that are all about statistics. But again, it wasn't planned as a YouTube thing. I wasn't a content creator back then, or I had just started. I don't know the exact timeline, but one or the other. But so basically this year, we're doing the top 100 statistics for all time. And the fun part is these are answers you can get either way. You can get these answers on your own, but the way numbers and charts and graphs present things is it gives you easier access to information. You can get quick access and visual representation of fun things. So for instance, just to give you some example of some questions, no answers here because you'll have to watch the actual show for answers. But for instance, what is the highest ranking new game on Tom's list this year? What game is it and what's the rank of it? So that's 2 seconds to figure that out based on having this information in front of you. What is the one game? There's only one game. What is the one game that is on all 5 of Tom, Roy, Z, Mike, and the people? What is the one game they have in common? We'll find out if you don't know already. Because, by the way, for all I know, they already know this and said this on their top 100. I've been watching most of them. But again, quick information. I can tell you exactly how much overlap they have of that. Which of the 2 of them have the greatest overlap? Which of the Dice Tower crew have the greatest overlap in their own top 100? Which person in the top 100 has the least Cult of the New? Which person has the least 2020 games in their top 10 top 100 games of all time. What games are leaving? That's basically. I mean, I have a whole bunch of questions like this, but basically, you can get quick access to interesting pieces of information. You can see graphs of how their top 100 have changed over time, of how much of the original have stayed in the collection. It's a fascinating thing to just really look at statistics and see it. Or at least I'm fascinated, and I know Tom enjoys it too because I've talked to him about this, and he really appreciates the numbers. He's like, I have no idea who else will like it, but it's cool numbers to see. It's cool to see data on like, I mean, think about it. He's been doing these lists since 2005. That's 16 years of data of how his top 100 have shifted over time. It's going to take quite some time of me doing a YouTube channel for that to be 16 years of data on my top 100, and I have to do a top 100 for that to be a thing. Maybe next year, we'll see. But that's basically what's coming up. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Dice Tower channel. I guess I'll include a link down below because it's a live stream, so it is already pre-scheduled, so you can see the link, so that will work. Past that, coming up this week, I'm going to be doing both games leaving the collection for January, as well as what I backed in January and December. I skipped the what I backed for December because I think I backed like 2 games, because December was a light month for Kickstarter, so I didn't see the point of doing a what I backed for December, so I combined them, or I am combining them when I film that, for what I backed in January and December, and that's basically it. Past that, there's more stuff coming up, obviously, but I don't know what what order, and also I usually save the full list for Patreon and do all that. Until next time, I'm Alex Radical from BoardGameCo. Thanks for sticking with me all the way through a different kind of week in review, and until next time, have a good one.